Here's a little short video again. 5,000 plus jobless asylum seekers on welfare in Maine could be eligible for expedited deportation under the Miller Plan. What is the Miller Plan?
What you heard tonight from President Trump, the breaking news here tonight, is saying that his government is going to accelerate efforts to review every person added to this country over the last 20 years, or the last 4 years, all 20 million. Now, obviously, if you're...
Should be more than 4. Be more like the Dominican Republic.
Legal, you're out automatically. But everybody else who was brought here, refugee, asylum status, whatever status, as he said, if you're not someone who loves this country, if you're not any benefit to this country, then we're going to send you out of this country. Because it's enough already. No one else has to die. No one else has to be murdered. No one else has to be shot. No more empty seats are needed at the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas table because of what Democrats have done to this country. So tonight we heard from a commander-in-chief a historic announcement, a brave announcement, exactly what America needed to hear, Kellyanne.
Absolutely agree with that. You should not be immigrating to a country and immediately getting on government benefits. That is not coming here to want to be a part of the country. That is treating it like an economic zone. Boston Globe said, Amy Lucia Lopez Beloza had received a scholarship to study in Massachusetts and dreamed of opening a tailor shop with her dad. When immigration agents detained her at Logan Airport, everything changed. And this person here said, you left out the super relevant information from your report. I'm sure it was just an oversight. In a statement to ABC News Boston affiliate WCVB, a spokesperson for Immigration and Customs Enforcement said Lopez Beloza had a removal order since 2015 and confirmed her removal. So she's been here illegally since at least 2015 when she was given a removal order. And she wants us to cry and feel sad for her losing scholarships and losing the ability to open a shop. A scholarship that probably should have gone to an American citizen. Why would we feel bad for this person? Speed of government, by the way, a goddamn decade to even start looking at this case. Yeah, things need to be incredibly fucking expedited. The New Yorker said Orville Atoria, a Jamaican national who'd lived in New York for nearly 50 years, was shackled, I'm sure, and put on an ice flight to Eswatini. It helped me imagine how the slaves might have felt going to another land in shackles and chains, he said. And then they got community noted, where it says, Orville Atoria has multiple serious felonies, including armed robbery and murder. He held a U.S. lawful permanent resident status, which can and was revoked following his criminal convictions. Yeah, I don't fucking care what they do with criminals, man. Like, what the fuck are we doing? And then Seamus here, a based Seamus, said, the right doesn't need to restrain itself on deportations for fear of bad optics. The left's optics will always be worse because they will always defend the murderers and rapists who get deported. Our elected officials need to act accordingly and do what's needed. And hard agree. Once again, I love seeing some of the stuff that has started being said, but I would like action. I need more action. Fucking do something, elected officials. Yay, freedom tunes. Like, holy shit, after that long, if you haven't figured it out by then you've absolutely got to go. Yeah, there's no excuse for anyone being here for 50 fucking years, regardless of felonies, and not having tried to become a citizen. You are blatantly saying that you don't care about our laws, and in fact, you enjoy the benefits being here unlawfully, and that's why you've never tried to become a citizen. Adding on top of the felonies is just fuel for the fucking fire. Why wasn't he dealt with sooner? So Libs of TikTok said, the University of Minnesota has a page on their website titled Whiteness Pandemic, which blames whiteness for perpetuating systemic racism in Western culture. They claim that white people have power and privilege and want families to push anti-racism on their children. They also recommend groups such as Black Lives Matter for people to develop your own white racial identity. This is insane. And here are some of the screenshots that she posted. Culture and Family Life Lab at the University of Minnesota, the Whiteness Pandemic, resources for parents, educators, and other caregivers. What is the Whiteness Pandemic? Racism is an epidemic that can also be considered a pandemic given its large cross-national proportion and spread. However, there is another pandemic lurking behind and driving the racism pandemic, the Whiteness Pandemic. Whiteness refers to culture, not biology. The centuries-old culture of whiteness features color blindness, passivity, and white fragility, which are all covert expressions of racism common in the United States. Naming the whiteness pandemic shifts our gaze from the victims and effects of racism onto the systems that perpetrate and perpetuate racism, starting with the family system. At birth, young children growing up in white families begin to be socialized into the culture of whiteness, making the family system one of the most powerful systems involved in systemic racism. How can you, without an ounce of awareness, write that having a family system, having a family support structure is akin to a culture of whiteness? Like that is so insanely offensive. I could not even imagine, like, the most racist KKK hood-wearing man saying such a thing. That's fucking wild. Communist propaganda? Yeah, absolutely. How do we halt and reverse the whiteness pandemic? If you were born or raised in the United States, you have grown up in the whiteness pandemic. And you can play a role in halting and reversing the pandemic, especially if you are white because of the power and privilege you hold in this racialized society. If you were socialized into the culture of whiteness during childhood, it's not your fault. But as an adult, it is now your responsibility to self-reflect, re-educate yourself, and act. If you are a white adult, anti-racist action involves an ongoing process of self-reflection in order to develop a healthy, positive white identity while engaging in courageous anti-racist parenting and caregiving. If I speak, I would cause a nuclear meltdown. Practical resources for self-reflection to develop a healthy white racial identity. Remember years ago when they were segregating in colleges and they had like people of color only spaces where white people weren't allowed to go and study? And they were saying that like white people also need to have a racial awakening. It was kind of funny at the time because it was like, man, I really don't think that's something that you want. But it turns out the kind of white racial awakening that they were talking about was just be the eternal whipping boy, I guess. Talking with children about race, racism, and anti-racism is only beneficial if you, as the white parent, educator, caregiver, are personally committed to growth in your own anti-racism journey. Many white parents are already on this journey by self-reflecting and pursuing growth in their own white racial identity, while actively listening to and amplifying the voices of Black individuals and other individuals of color. It's really weird to think about, like, racial identity in the first place, but if your racial identity hinges on how you amplify other races above you, that's not you having a racial identity. That's just kind of strange. Why does it sound like the Klan, but with extra steps? Yeah, I feel like if you change this paper into, like, the blackness pandemic, you know? And they were like, blackness refers to culture, not biology. The centuries-old culture of blackness features colorblindness, passivity, and black fragility, which are all covert expressions of racism common in the United States. Naming the blackness pandemic shifts our gaze from the victims and effects of racism onto the systems that perpetrate and perpetuate racism. Starting with the family system. At birth, young children growing up in Black families begin to be socialized into the culture of blackness, making the family system one of the most powerful systems involved in systemic racism. Like that sounds like you could have just lifted this out of some sort of like KKK meeting, man. Then there's a video of some lady, some really racist lady.
We posit that there is a whiteness pandemic behind the racism pandemic, and that this begins in the family system where young children are socialized into the culture of whiteness within white families. Our first recommendation is to remember that the whiteness pandemic is a pandemic. If you were born and raised in the United States, especially in a white family, then you've been raised in the pandemic, and you can play a role in halting and reversing this pandemic. We have two specific recommendations to that end. The first is for white parents to invest time in their own racial identity development through joining an organization like Showing Up for Racial Justice or your local BLM chapter.
I genuinely have no idea how not only can these people say such vile racist things in public and have zero repercussions for it, but they're like instructors at universities. They teach these things. This is from the Institute of Child Development. Like if anyone even made some kind of a joke in this vein, they would have people tearing at their throat. But this is like a completely unironic belief that this woman has. It's just insanity. How do we let this continue? And then she quote retweeted it again and talks about the professor saying that there's a whiteness pandemic. Why does News hate white people? Because I guess they just haven't responded. It's just insanity. And when you can't connect like why a lot of people do a lot of things, if you just apply, well, maybe they just hate white people, it unfortunately starts making a bit of sense. She's cut from Sir Tiny Stash's cloth. We tend to want to remove diseases, and if they are treating whiteness like a disease, the dehumanization has happened for many years. It is unfortunately nothing new. Judge Gonzales admits race guides her rulings. This fat hog freed a 72-time offender because he's not white. He then burned Bethany McGee alive and laughed about it. Judge Gonzales must be indicted for crimes against humanity.
I serve as Vice President for the Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity.
The first time I came out on the bench and the deputy announced, all rise, the Honorable Judge Teresa Molina, the whole courtroom stood up and I was all excited. He's walking out there. And I saw an Illinois State Trooper. He was African American. He had a sleeve covering his tattoos. And he was standing there and he looked at me and he nodded. And I knew what that meant. And so I looked at him and I nodded back like, that's right, we're doing this. And it felt so good. It felt so good. So to me, a fine of $354, which is our normal no insurance fine, that's a lot of money. And some of the judges that I work with came from money, so $354 is no big deal. But to most of the people that come to my courtroom, it is a big deal. And so I always offer them the opportunity to do community service. Being a Latina in the office, people would tell me, like, don't you feel like you're prosecuting your own people? But it's true. There were a lot of, defendants that look like me. However, I had a chance as a prosecutor to make a difference as to what cases come in. I had a chance as a prosecutor to decide what offers were appropriate. And so
You should not be making decisions as a prosecutor based on race. That is wildly inappropriate. And it's, again, wild that this person knows that there will be no repercussions for her making decisions based on race. So she can just openly say this and nothing will happen.
I always offer them the opportunity to do community service.
Imagine someone's actually proud to base law fair on the basis of race. Yeah, it's weird. It's fucking weird. The failed Afghan asylum seeker who admitted to stabbing his female boss 26 times at a clothing store in Krefeld, Germany back in May has been found not criminally responsible for his actions and will serve no prison time. Amid claims of bullying, Syed Akbar S. locked the door to the New Yorker store on May 7th and carried out the attack before fleeing. He had taken a pocket knife to work that day, and he was arrested the same day and confessed to the killing. His asylum application had already been rejected, but German authorities had allowed the man to stay due to a deportation ban, as Afghanistan was allegedly too dangerous to be sent back to. It's him! He is the one who makes Afghanistan dangerous! And you have imported the man that makes Afghanistan dangerous to Germany! He is the danger to the other Afghans! What do you mean? What do you fucking mean? His defense claimed he was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and could not be found criminally liable for his actions.
What?
If you attempt murder, or you actually murder someone, and you are found that you are too insane to understand that murder is bad, you should not be freed. You should not be told you can't be held criminally liable. You should be executed. People should not be paying tax money to keep someone unable to live in society alive. This is not kind. This is not rehabilitation. This is not, we need to keep these murderers alive. This is, you are unfit to be in a society of normal people. You don't understand killing someone is wrong. Therefore, we sentence you to the death penalty. The presiding judge at the Krefeld Regional Court ordered his placement in a psychiatric hospital. Oh, those poor psychiatric hospital workers, man. This is the logical endpoint of the tyranny of human rights, the victimization of the innocent to protect the guilty. I'm so sick of seeing it. I am so sick of seeing it. These people want to pretend they have so much empathy and care, but all they care about are the criminals and the murderers. Where is the sympathy for the victims? Where is the empathy for the victims and their family who lost a fucking life? Where is that? Why don't you care? Liam Dell, thank you for the Germany's so desperate to be anti-Nazi, they can't help themselves. They have to allow foreigners to do whatever they want. Enforcing your country's laws is not Nazism. How have we gotten to this place? Arresting people who murder someone premeditatedly because he locked the door and brought a knife to work. That's not Nazism. That's just how you have a functioning society. And if you think a functioning society only happens when you have Nazis, that's really racist. What the fuck do you mean? The murderer said it'd be really mean to punish him. Oh my God. I'm so sick of it, man. A federal judge who's an Obama appointee rules that ICE has gone too far with warrantless arrests. Judge R. Brooke Jackson says ICE in Colorado can no longer arrest illegals just for being here illegally, unless they have a warrant or specific evidence that the person is a flight risk. And I agree with that top tweet. Like, who's gonna hold these fucking judges accountable, man? They're already here illegally. They don't need to break another law to be removed. They've already broken the law. What is this fucking logic? And how do these corrupt judges have any fucking sway on what happens with federal immigration law? It boggles my mind. Too bad, fuck you, Judge, can and will. It's like, it's great to see ICE still operating in these areas where the people in power are just absolutely fuckadelically parasitic ridden. But it also makes me feel bad because, like you see in Chicago, the ICE agents get attacked, they get shot at, they get rammed into by cars, and the mayor and the local police are just like, well, fuck, you're on your own. You guys are like the Gestapo or some shit. It's like, what the fuck is happening? And it's, again, crazy to me that you'll have people be like, I don't want to pay attention to the culture war. Fuck you! Like, we have been in this war for how fucking long, and how many more people are going to have to be casualties of this shit before we finally enact our goddamn laws as they're already fucking written? This shit was being taught 40 years ago. Like I said, it's been a long time. It's been a long fucking time. The long march through the institutions was successful. And we were warned in the 80s. Bezmenov tried to warn us where we were going, and we are living through what he predicted, not because he's a Cassandra, but because he knew what the result would be if nothing was done. He was merely telling you what he saw already in other places and what he knew was going to happen if the communists were not removed. And we have Lily Tang Williams here in New Hampshire saying, my opponent, Representative Goodlander, did not answer the simple question from Adam Sexton because she couldn't name a single unlawful order that the POTUS has issued. The goal of the video was to sow doubt and mistrust among our troops. It's shameful and irresponsible.
So do you think it's important at this point to be more specific about what the illegal order that you believe has been issued or the illegal order you anticipate being issued is?
Adam, I'm going to continue to do my job, and part of my job is saying what the law says, and that is what I've done, and I stand by that, and I stand by the oath that I took to our Constitution.
I genuinely do not understand how these people can blatantly lie like this and then feel good about themselves. How do you just constantly and continuously lie and still feel like you are the good person, you are the freedom fighter, you are the one being a helpful person? And how does anyone vote for this kind of fucking rhetoric? It's wild. And if fucking Lily does not win in New Hampshire, I do not want to see how things are going to go. Continuing, another one of the people in the sedition video, Elissa Slotkin, a Democrat, obviously, one of the seditious six, suggests a few days ago that the National Guard will start randomly shooting at Americans. She knew this was a lie and yet said it anyways. Now, 2 National Guardsmen were shot. She knew what she was doing. Once again, like that guy said, these are not useful idiots. These are malicious liars.
Look at these videos coming out of places like Chicago. It makes me incredibly nervous that we're about to see people in law enforcement, people in uniform military get nervous, get stressed, shoot at American civilians.
They were shooting at people. I don't even know if they were civilians because it was so long ago, but they were shooting at people who rammed their cars into them. And they shot at the ICE agents first. This woman is disgusting.
It is a very, very stressful situation for these law enforcement and for the communities on the ground. So it was basically a warning to say, like, if you're asked to do something, particularly against American citizens.
Actually crazy that you would put out in the national sphere after already saying, you know, hey, if you're in the military, you don't have to listen to illegal orders. What illegal orders? I don't know, but you don't have to listen to them. So now people are like, well, the military's being given illegal orders, and why aren't they doing anything about it? And then this bitch comes up and she's like, well, the military people, like, they're going to get very nervous. There's like, they're shooting at people. What do you think is going to happen? What do you fucking think is going to happen? This is the goal. This is what they want. This is how people like Jay Jones, like that fucking Virginia governor lady, end up getting elected after they just straight up say, yeah, we want to murder you. And they won their elections. Ken Dilanian justifies the shooting of 2 National Guardsmen in D.C. Wow, I'm so shocked.
There's so much controversy happening in the United States right now with ICE, who are also wearing uniforms and wearing masks. And so there's, you don't know, people walking around with uniforms in an American city. There are some Americans that might object to that. And so
if you're wearing a uniform, Americans might object to that. You got to worry about your life. If you're an American military uniform on American soil, what the fuck are we doing here? 2 National Guardsmen are executed steps from the White House. I don't know if both died. I know there's confirmation that the woman died, and we'll get to that. I don't know if the other National Guardsman has died. But this says 2 guardsmen are executed steps from the White House, and Fox News' Jennifer Griffin's first instinct is to delegitimize their mission. She said they shouldn't have been there in the first place. Not honor their sacrifice, not acknowledge the gravity, just attack the deployment. She needs to be fired immediately. I don't understand the rhetoric coming from people on the left saying that the National Guardsmen shouldn't have been there. This isn't some place out in Gaza. This isn't some like war-torn African country. This isn't Fallujah. This isn't like deep in Syria, right? Like this isn't somewhere on like the Ukrainian-Russia war front. What the fuck do you mean the National Guard shouldn't have been in the capital of the fucking country they protect? If there's anywhere that they should feel like they won't be attacked, it is that place. And DC was filled with actual fucking crime. And when Trump deployed the National Guard, wow, crime went down. But these people prioritize the criminals and the amount of terror that criminals can place on the average citizen wandering around. And so to them, the National Guard being there, preventing criminals from doing crime, is a bad thing. They had DC fenced off and flooded with guardsmen for the first 2 years of Biden's term. What do you even say to somebody who's so far out of reality? They say National Guardsmen shouldn't be in the capital of the fucking country they protect. That is wild. What's more important, they really think the guardsmen and soldiers are somebody else's soldiers and they're not American sons and daughters from the same country as them. They genuinely have this twisted belief that America is currently run by fascist people, and that it is their duty to object to and fight against the fascist regime of our government currently. And so they also believe that the military naturally would oppose any kind of fascism. And so the military would just de facto be on their side if they decided to do anything to Trump's cabinet or average conservatives. The people on the street also loved them because crime went down. Apparently, the National Guard are fascist occupiers and the National Guard are just picking up the trash are both true to these people. Oh my God. And then Scott Wiener here. Scott Wiener, who I don't know why anyone fucking listens to anything this dumb shit has to say. It only took minutes for the extremist grifters to make the horrifying killings of 2 members of the National Guard about Democrats objecting to Trump's illegal guard deployment. It's Charlie Kirk all over again. They say they're for free speech until they don't like the speech. The people losing their jobs for celebrating Charlie Kirk getting assassinated, that is a, like, how do you defend that? How do you, an illegal guard deployment? I was gonna quote retweet this guy, but I kept having to reword the tweet so I wouldn't just glow with the energy of 1,000 suns. And I couldn't figure out how to fucking word it without sounding literally insane, because I was so fucking mad reading this. And he's quote retweeting, CNN guest just a few weeks ago compared the National Guard to Nazis. 2 National Guard members were just shot in DC. The Democrats know exactly what they're doing. They wanted violence. Do not listen to anyone that tells you people like Scott Wiener or Goodlander or that other fucking bitch we saw earlier. I don't even remember her goddamn name. Do not let anyone tell you that they are like idiots, right? Don't let anyone tell you that these people just don't know what they're doing. This is malicious and it is by design. And it is frustrating that Republicans will hem and haw and wring their hands and do fucking nothing about it.
Actually, what the president is doing through the Secretary of Defense is creating units, official military units, to quite frankly, watch the American people. And that's the thing that is absolutely abhorrent. It reminds me so much of what happened in Germany in the 1930s. Actually, what the president...
These people are insane. They're insane. And anytime you call them out for lying, you just get called the insane one. It feels like such a fucking struggle to get anything done. A lot of people took you to be hyperbolic when you said they're calling you a fascist to signify you're a target to kill. It wasn't hyperbolic. 1 with Trump's attempt, twice with Charlie, now 3 and 4. That's absolutely what they're doing. And I mean, I'm glad that that's caught on as like a mainstream thing to say. I'm glad a lot of people have recognized that that is exactly what's happening. I'm glad I was ahead of the curve once again. But it's like, would I have gotten there if I didn't face the kind of attacks that I did? Would I have realized quite what time it is as early as I did if it wasn't for the people trying to attack me for doing literally nothing? Germany in the 1930s, so Nazi, very fascist. Jesus, get some new material. They don't need new material because enough idiots are willing to believe that. If those National Guardmen weren't deployed in DC, they wouldn't have been shot. This administration is putting them in harm's way for political reasons. It's disgusting. It must end. Both of the men shot were from West Virginia. Well, one was a woman, but I digress. If they were home, they would have been alive, home for Thanksgiving. The administration is putting them in harm's way for political reason. Not the rhetoric of people on the left calling National Guardsmen fascists and Nazis and akin to what was happening in the Second World War. That's not putting them in harm's way. It's the Trump administration wanting to have the National Guard clean up crime in a crime-riddled area that's putting them in harm's way. Maybe if the DC government actually enforced laws, the president wouldn't feel a need to do it for them. I mean, the not enforcing the laws, again, I'm pretty sure by design. There would be no reason to do this if they weren't trying to cause enough widespread chaos for the next time they get in power to be able to enforce things that, commies typically do. This was, the National Guard shooter has been identified as Rahmanullah Lakanwal, an Afghan illegal who entered the United States under the Biden administration in 2021 and reportedly yelled Allahu Akbar during the attack. I don't know if this video has anything in it. Yeah, there's one of the guards people there, unfortunately. I can't show some of the more close-up stuff. Members of the National Guard were spotted praying together outside the DC hospital where their fellow soldiers are fighting for their lives. Keep praying for a miracle here. Man. And this is a picture of him. Don't worry, he's censored. This is Rahmanullah Lakanwal, the Muslim migrant suspected of launching the shooting ambush on the National Guard troops near the White House, entered the U.S. in 2021 from Afghanistan under a Biden administration program. He claimed to be a refugee and applied for asylum in 2024, which was granted in April 2025. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, says it's stopping immigration services for Afghans while an internal review is conducted. For many years, Afghan refugees in Western countries have been responsible for numerous Islamic terror attacks. For some reason, he is naked. He's enjoying some snap along the way. I don't know what that means. But the United Nations here, being subversive and disgusting as usual, right after 2 National Guardsmen are shot by someone who should not have been in our fucking country. Seeking asylum is a fundamental human right for people fleeing violence, persecution, war, or disaster. Everyone has the right to seek asylum. Refugees works around the world to support those #forced to flee. And they posted an image that says, asylum is life-saving. Read the fucking room, you globalist ghouls. Holy shit. actually tone deaf thing to fucking do. They're not tone deaf. They know what they're doing. Yeah, you're probably right in that these people also know what they're doing, and they're trying to inflame the people who are just retarded and have no idea what's going on. You're probably right. I just get so angry that I'm like, it's so hard to believe that these are things that genuinely are happening and I'm seeing with my fucking eyeballs. Like, this shouldn't have been said. This shouldn't happen. And yet it is, and it does, and they did. And obviously, yeah, you're right. They know what they're doing. JD Vance here. I remember back in 2021 criticizing the Biden policy of opening the floodgate to unvetted Afghan refugees. Friends sent me messages calling me a racist. It was a clarifying moment. They shouldn't have been in our country. Many of our voters will demand not just words, but action. Thank you! Please and thank you! And this is an entirely appropriate response. We will first bring the shooter to justice, and then we must redouble our efforts to deport people with no right to be in our country. Already, some voices in corporate media chirp that our immigration policies are too harsh. Tonight is a reminder of why they're wrong. Our immigration policies are nowhere near harsh enough. They need to be like 500% harsher than they are right now to even be in line with other countries' immigration policies. We have been told that we need to open ourselves willfully to every kind of person who's even willing to lie about who they are. And if we don't want people lying about who they are in our country, we're the bad people. I am tired of it, and we don't have to live this way. Asylum is life-saving. Mental asylum. This guy, Dean Blundel, official Twitter account, Canadian muckraker, dog whisperer, I don't know, some fucking retard. For the first time in American history, 2 National Guard members were murdered by an American civilian in DC. That doesn't happen if Trump isn't in office. Regardless of spin, he will wear this stain like a scarlet letter forever. My God. And then he got community noted because he's a fucking retard. Misleading, authorities identified the shooter as Afghan national Rahmanullah Lakanwal, not an American civilian. And so he followed this up with, well, Trump approved the asylum request for the DC shooter, grateful that early reporting was wrong, and the National Guard members are alive. For every one of you MAGA cult P-brains blaming Biden for not meeting the Afghan national at the border after he was granted asylum by the U.S. on recommendation from the U.S. military for helping them as a translator during the U.S. failed mission in Afghanistan, while working secretly for the DHS as a fucking field operative at the age of 78 in 2021, while being the president of the United States. Now you know that this is 100% Donald Trump's fault. This guy is just absolutely insane. Like, nothing cannot be Trump's fault. It doesn't matter that he came in under Biden's administration. It doesn't matter that the military recommended him and that was probably wrong to do because all of us have that bleeding heart, let's help everyone. Right? Like someone in chat said earlier, a lot of the people who worked as translators, they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart. They didn't do it because they loved America. They did it because there's like long-seated blood feuds with whoever the fuck we were fighting. Terminal TDS, absolutely. Incredibly terminal TDS. Is it a troll account? No, worse, it's Canadian. True. Dean Blundel is a former radio morning show host. He lost his job doing that because he would bully and harass the women at the station. Imagine my shock! A progressive man is also a harasser of women. More news at 11. Water still wet. And here is a tweet from the USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Effective immediately, processing of all immigration requests relating to Afghan nationals is stopped indefinitely, pending further review of security and vetting protocols. The protection and safety of our homeland and of the American people remains our singular focus and mission. Keep it indefinite. We need a moratorium on immigration. I think it's very much necessary at this point. And just send them back. You don't care. If they're also non-violent, they'll be fine. And then I saw this because Twigapoint retweeted it. Ed Krassenstein saying dumb shit as per usual. And I agree. I can't say what I think should happen without getting suspended from this website. Ed Krassenstein said if they weren't on duty there, raking leaves and standing in front of federal buildings for no good reason, this wouldn't have happened.
Apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago, and we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out, but what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty. And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those two National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
And to hear this, to hear Vance saying that, Mr. Krassenstein just being like, it was Trump's stupid political stunt teamed with another lunatic killer that led to this. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. The radical rhetoric of wanting people dead coming from the left, it is enough. It's been enough. The fact that they've been allowed to say this kind of shit for so long is just insanity. Someone, Jane Meyer, said, "This is so tragic, so unnecessary. These poor guardsmen should never have been deployed. I live in DC and watched as they had virtually nothing to do but pick up trash. It was for political show, and at what a cost." Is this the narrative we're going with? That the National Guard is just picking up trash? That it's not picking up criminals off the street. It's just there. It's there to pick up I mean, the criminals are garbage. So I mean, if you're trying to use that as a stand-in for the criminals, like, yeah, I agree. But that would be necessary, right? Maybe if the people in charge of DC would actually clean up their own fucking streets of the criminal garbage, we wouldn't have had to have the National Guard come in. How many times does the left have to justify murder before we do something about it? Way too many fucking times. Way too many. They were doing nothing and they still got murdered. Yep. And then in response to this person, Councilwoman Vicky Palladino, NYC council member representing District 19 of Queens, possibly one of the only sane people left in New York City. "I really don't understand these posts saying the guardsmen shouldn't have been put in harm's way by being deployed to Washington, D.C. They're basically saying American soldiers are unsafe in the capital city of their own nation, as though it were equal to a deployment to a foreign war zone. Yet almost every major lefty account is parroting this narrative. It's bizarre. Like, of course people are going to try and murder the National Guard. What did you expect to happen in Washington?" Is that the narrative here? That Washington is Fallujah? Oh, she said the same thing as me. Or that the left has declared a de facto state of war and casualties are now just to be expected. It's extremely bad either way. The left has declared a de facto state of war a long time ago. It's just now they are emboldened to actually go after people. There were next to no repercussions for the rhetoric that led to MAGA people being punched in the street. There were no repercussions to Trump being shot at. There were no repercussions to Charlie Kirk being assassinated. When these things continue to happen and there's no repercussion for this kind of rhetoric or behavior, it's only going to snowball and get worse. So it doesn't surprise me that it's still snowballing and still getting worse. And the only question is, for Republicans, how many more people have to become a part of that snowball before you finally start trying to get people on the Democratic Party removed from their positions for calling for violence? There have been people crying and complaining when Trump said that the punishment for treason or sedition or whatever the fuck ever is death, after the Seditious Six made that video telling the military that they shouldn't listen to illegal orders. I don't really care that he said the punishment for treason or sedition is death after leftists elected someone who said they want to see conservatives' children die in their arms because they're raising little fascists. Why the fuck should I care at this point? Why are you trying to shame me into caring about something when it is an argument and a rhetoric that you yourself have started? You are not going to use my principles against me in that regard. Your only complaint about Trump is that he doesn't actually do the things he threatens. Yeah, if Like, why would he tweet out that there's punishment for treason or sedition? I can't remember how he worded it. That's why I keep saying treason or sedition. Why would he tweet that out unless there are plans to bring cause for treason or sedition against the people who said that rhetoric? Are we going to see Republicans trying to get them removed from their congressional seats? Lily Tang Williams has been saying Goodlander should step down, and she should. We all know she's not, so something should be done. You stand corrected. Apparently she's from Queens. Yeah, that's what she said in this. He's all bark, little to no bite. Staten Island tried to split off from NYC. Politicians who are spreading this kind of like, we should just kill them rhetoric need to be removed from their seats. The fact that they're still getting elected is insanity. The fact that people do not realize that getting elected because you want to kill people is insane. Like, why are we still having these conversations? And then American First Legal put out this document thing here that says, breaking, the Biden-Harris administration claimed that they were importing Afghans as refugees who helped the U.S. government, when in reality, officials admit in newly obtained docs from litigation that they did not know their identities, and some have allegedly committed heinous crimes. We have from John Beasley, subject is gathering biodata to Patricia Santos, August 4th, 2021. Copy of Embassy of Kabul P1 referrals. Regards, JAB, John Armin Beasley Jr. Do you recognize any of these people? They're not currently employed by our office. And then down here it says per state, state government, Wednesday, August 4th. To John Beasley, per state, subject gathering biodata. Dear Mr. Beasley, I am writing on behalf of the Refugee Affairs Office to request your assistance with identifying locally engaged staff who qualify as referrals to U.S. refugee admissions programs. Please note, LE staff in this respect is referring only to Afghans who work in Afghanistan. Monday afternoon, Secretary Blinken announced a new program known as the P2 program. The Afghan P2 program complements the SIV program and denotes groups of special concern by virtue of their circumstances and apparent need for refugee resettlement. LE staff who are eligible for the SIV program should not be referred to as the U.S. RAP. The Afghan P2 designation permits the embassy to refer LE staff and family members, spouse and children of any age, whether married or unmarried, for P2 U.S. RAP access if these Afghans do not meet the minimum time in service for a SIV, 2 years, but who work or worked at any time as LE staff for the U.S. government in Afghanistan. That doesn't seem very safe at all. America First Legal continues, we obtained these documents through litigation against the Department of Justice after it stonewalled our investigation into the Biden-Harris administration's decision-making over the disastrous withdrawal. The documents we received reveal utter chaos and incompetence. And this is via a Freedom of Information Act star. America First Legal is a national nonprofit organization. AFL works to promote the rule of law in the U.S., prevent executive overreach, ensure due process, and equal protection for all Americans, and promote knowledge and understanding of the law and individual rights guaranteed under the Constitution and laws of the United States. For months, the Biden administration assured Americans it had matters well in hand in Afghanistan and that the terrorists were not about to take over. For example, at President Biden's July 8th, 2021 press conference, he said, a question was, is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable? The president said, no, it is not. He was questioned why. The president said, because you, the Afghan troops, have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable. Another question, Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse. These assurances, or the president said this is not true. Those assurances were false. The Taliban is now in control and the U.S. has completely withdrawn its military and diplomatic presence from Afghanistan. The Biden government claims to have evacuated over 120,000 individuals from Afghanistan, but its planning has been inept, its execution chaotic, and its reporting and transparency lacking in detail. It has withheld critical facts, including, among other things, the number of American citizens still in Afghanistan, the nationalities of all of those evacuated, the locations of all non-citizens granted admission to the U.S., the immigration status or lack thereof of all non-citizens, and the process, procedures, and criteria used for vetting and screening evacuees for security and other risks. ISIL's mission includes promoting government transparency and accountability by gathering official information, analyzing it, and disseminating it through reports, press releases, and/or other media, including social media platforms, to educate the public. At the core of this mission is keeping government officials accountable for their duty to faithfully execute the laws and protect and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States, and to inform the public as to who the government is allowing entry to the country unscreened. Therefore, under the Freedom of Information Act, AFL hereby requests the following records within 20 business days. Definitions: U.S. citizen means a natural-born or naturalized citizen of the U.S. of America. INL Air Wing means Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, Office of Aviation. Its employees, contractors, vehicles, and aircraft, all is more particularly described at the State Gov website. National Vetting Center means the center created pursuant to National Security Presidential Memorandum, NSPM 9, optimizing the use of federal government information in the support of national vetting enterprise, and more particularly described at another government website. Non-U.S. person means an alien as defined by 8 U.S.C., and then they have the number thingy there. Parole authority means authority granted under another law here. Refugee has meaning assigned to it by the U.S. Constitution thing there. Special immigrant visa means special immigrant visas for Iraqi and Afghan translators, interpreters, as defined by Public Law 109-163, and subsequent amendments, and as detailed on the State Department's website at, and then the website. Requested records: A, all records that mention or reference screening or vetting individuals being evacuated from Kabul and or Afghanistan in the possession of the following custodians. First, Attorney General Merrick Garland. 2, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. 3, DOJ Chief of Staff. 4, Assistant Attorney General for National Security Division. 5, Deputy Assistant Attorney General for Counterterrorism and NSD. And 6, NSD Chief of Staff. The time frame for this request is August 12th, 2021 to August 31st, 2021. All records related to DOJ providing any other government partner any information on the identity of any person who boarded a U.S.-operated aircraft leaving Afghanistan between August 10th, 2021 and August 31st, 2021. All documents that mention or reference refugee or SIV screening or processing for individuals seeking evacuation or resettlement out of Kabul, Afghanistan, or KBL. The time frame for this request is July 1st, 2021 to the date the records request is processed. All records that mention or reference coordination with the Department of Defense, the Department of State, and the Department of Homeland Security to screen or vet any individual seeking evacuation from Afghanistan and or admission into the U.S. All records regarding either 1, inquiries from the interagency, or 2, information provided to an interagency partner about people seeking admission to the U.S. or a U.S.-operated aircraft out of Afghanistan. All records of derogatory information provided to the Department of State on individuals evacuated from Afghanistan between August 16th and August 31st, 2021. And then they put their redaction requests in there as well, because obviously stuff has to be redacted. For example, in early August 2021, the Department of State asked federal government agencies to confirm that a spreadsheet listing Afghans who did not meet minimum time in service for a special immigrant visa should be referred to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program for resettlement into the U.S. because they had supposedly otherwise worked on behalf of the U.S. or a U.S. government-funded program. And so part of the stuff that they got from the FOIA request is attached is the bio data you previously provided to redacted per state. We have reorganized this data to enable batch uploads into the PRM refugee database. Kindly confirm by COB Thursday, August 5th, that the bio data for your staff and their families is accurate. Please also confirm that all of your staff are listed on this document. Do not make any changes to the format. Please ask your staff to ensure their name is as it appears on their passports and that all information is correct. When sending the spreadsheet back, if any info is incorrect, please fill in the cell with red and enter the correct information. If you know the staff member has already applied for an SIV, please fill in the very last column of the spreadsheet green. If the staff member's SIV application status is unknown, or if they have less than 2 years of time in service at the embassy, please fill in the very last column of the spreadsheet yellow. All LE staff who are qualified for P2s will automatically be entered into PRM's refugee database. No other action is required from them at this time. If later they qualify to apply for SIVs, they should do so. If you have any questions about how to complete the attached spreadsheet, please contact via email or phone. Any P2 program questions should be directed to redacted and redacted. A Department of Justice attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul appeared to not recognize any of the names in the list. Even the Afghans referred and then nominated by the U.S. Embassy in Kabul for admission into the U.S. RAP, however, would face significant challenges to make it into the United States, such as finding their own way to a third country and supporting themselves while their application for acceptance into the program for resettlement to the U.S. is being reviewed. Security checks are performed, medical exams done, etc., etc. Says a key point about this process: after the person has been referred by you, nominated by post, and accepted by Washington, they will get notice that they have been nominated for admission into the program. The actual process, however, does not start until the applicant has left Afghanistan, is in a third country, not the U.S., and has gone to the U.S. Embassy in the third country and notified them that redacted is a refugee who has been nominated for the program. From that point, the refugee needs to be prepared to support redacted financially in the third country for up to 18 months, while redacted application for acceptance into the program and resettlement to the U.S. is being reviewed. Security checks are performed, medical exams done. I empathize because unless the refugee can make redacted way to a third country where redacted, I don't know what these things are redacted for, already has a family, a place to stay, this processing period and the lack of financial assistance during the processing period can be a hard stop for most people. This what the fuck, man? What the fuck? It's redacting the he, she, and hims, hers. Why is it redacting that? That doesn't make any sense. That's weird. That's weird. Kind of grotesque. That like someone in the military is like, oh, we can't have vetting from these people. That would be mean. If, however, your contact is still interested in having you refer redacted for nomination, there are really only two forms attached for you to prepare and send to me. First is a justification memo. Most of the language is boilerplate and should not be touched. The justification section, however, should be a well-drafted paragraph which lays out redacted's work, the specific threat received, when it was received, who threatened redacted, who did redacted report the threat to, was it investigated and by whom, what was the result of the investigation of the threat, whether or not redacted remains in danger. The best way that we have found to get this information is to get redacted on a Zoom, Teams, WebEx, etc. call and have redacted tell you redacted's threat story, and then you make sure that redacted has covered each of these points. In addition to the justification memo, you'll need a clear scanned copy of a passport and national ID card for the principal applicant, your contact, and for each of redacted. Of course, this is the second sticking point for most folks here, as they often live in blended and extended family households in this country, and the thought of leaving grandma, uncle, etc. behind becomes a second hard stop. I'm once again reminded of the interviews done of the women left behind in Syria as men were running away to Europe in the mass migration crisis, and the women in Syria were saying that the men are on a fool's errand. They're not committing like a jihad in the name of Allah like they believe they're doing. They're abandoning their families, they're abandoning their wives and children, and they're abandoning their country. What the fuck?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Bilal Abdul Kareem for On the Ground News, and we are here in one of the refugee camps. I came here today because I wanted to get some of the opinions of some of the people that are here regarding the refugees that are flooding into Europe.
How did you find it? That's like some KB and Ziz level magic, brother. That's insane. Thank you, Vaush. Your Google foo is strong.
Other nations. I felt that it was that the voice that is missing from this entire situation are the voices that are inside of Syria that cannot leave or don't have the ability to leave. I think this has been missing from some of the debates that have been going on. Should the men leave Syria? Should they bring their families to a certain point and then come back to fight fight against Bashar al-Assad or what have you? And I've received some mixed reactions there. But as I said, one of the things that I felt that was missing from this entire debate are some of the voices of some of the people who are here in Syria, and there are none who are hurting or suffering more than people who are living in the refugee camps. Now, the refugee camps, as you can see, are not fun. It's hot.
Sunflower!
Many of them have said that they've had plenty of problems with water, security, particularly if they have daughters, and they're suffering from food shortage and such like that. So I wanted to just take a few minutes. Let's ask them how they feel about the people going to Europe and other places, and this is what they said.
I'm very upset about the men going out. We have a major crisis here. If they go, who will free us? Who will protect us? We are their honor. We are their honor. I have 5 friends whose father was martyred. Who will avenge them? Or the wife of the martyr, who will get revenge for her? By Allah, this is wrong. Isn't this wrong? It is wrong to leave your country. It is hard to leave your country and your family. It is so hard. We're bearing everything not to leave our country. We came from Homs to here. It's harder than coming from European countries. It's hard. Even if Europeans are better, we'll not go there. I have this daughter, she's disabled, and I have no food to feed her. I don't even have a spoon to eat with. Allah is my witness. In my opinion, it is forbidden to leave the country. They leave it when it is in a bad need. They have to defend it. They have to stand by its people and not leave it and go just like that. Whoever is acting up, acting like... I mean, they've left the country for people to control us. If there were 10,000 or more refugees, and I mean the men, that are sitting in front of you right now, what would you say to them? I'd say to them, go to jihad immediately. They have to go to jihad. They have to defend the motherland. We all have to be one hand to get our rights back. If we're speaking according to Islamic law, it's not right. This is leaving jihad and turning one's back to the enemy. But as for those who just want life and are far away from their Lord, you might give them an excuse. I'm going to pause for a second because I see a lot of people typing in chat and I think none of you have any idea what's going on by what you're saying. Defend the motherland via invasion. They are in jihad. These people are saying that the men should not have gone to Europe. They're saying that the refugees who left and went to Europe are bad. They are cowards. They have abandoned their wives, their children, the people who have died in the war against Assad, right? Regardless of your thoughts on the war, these are people advocating for none of these men should have ever left to Europe. They should have stayed in their country. The people left behind feel like their duty has been abandoned and that their duty in jihad is protecting their... Yes, exactly. These are people who are like, Syria is our country. The men fleeing to Europe are worthless cowards. They should be here. TLDR, the men leaving aren't doing real jihad. They're pieces of shit who abandoned their jihad in Syria. Yes, exactly. Very, very good summary. Because the country is dispersed, too much bombing, our friends became our enemies. We're the enemy of each other. There is injustice. Death now is close to all the people. Whoever just wants this life wants to escape. But those who want the hereafter will be patient, and the reward is up to Allah. By Allah, it's forbidden. They left the people here. Others are coming from outside to rescue us, and they're leaving. It was military-age men on purpose? Yeah. And listening to their countrymen being like, why are you leaving for Europe? Why are you abandoning everything here to go just enrich your own life? You need to be here helping the people that you should be caring about. No. That said, if you plan on submitting a referral for this person and redacted, you should plan on doing it sooner rather than later, as things are changing on the ground here daily. I suggest that you discuss all of this with redacted and decide if you want to proceed with the referral. Let me know. Regards, John Armand Beasley Jr., Justice Attaché. Imagine. As early as August 15th, 2021, despite the previous guidance that U.S. RAP applicants would need to find their own way to a third country, hundreds were leaving Afghanistan on U.S. Air Force cargo plane. Why? Why were we doing that? Why were they doing that? By August 16th, 2021, the DOJ National Security Division still considered vetting to be an interagency issue. And this is a bunch of redacted. Julie Dickerson is listed as one of the people receiving this. Various interagency issues. Colleagues, is there a 30-minute space today when we can circle up to sync on a number of ongoing things, including the meetings Redacted is attending on vetting, NCR security, etc. On that latter item, NSC has contacted Redacted, saying that Homeland Security Advisor was concerned about Redacted. While the DOJ has not disclosed what the vetting issues were, we also obtained a Department of State cable instructing post to process civil society leaders as Priority 1 refugee applicants. This one says, from Secretary of State, Washington, D.C., action all diplomatic and consular posts collective immediate. A bunch of tags here, caption, sensitive, reference, Kabul. Updated guidance for bureaus and posts on Afghan refugee referrals to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Bureau. Message provides instructions for posts on steps to take in the event that they are contacted by Afghans claiming a U.S. affiliation, including a referral to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. It also provides updated guidance for posts and bureaus on how to submit P1 and P2 refugee referrals. Specific guidance on individuals arriving in third countries on private charter flights or organized overland movements will be sent separately. 2. Priority 1 and Priority 2 program overview. The two mechanisms available to U.S. government agencies to refer Afghans to the U.S. RAP are Priority 1 and Priority 2 programs. P1 and P2 are labels for different categories of refugee applicant and are not linked to the level of importance or priority in processing. P1 referrals are intended for Afghans known to U.S. government agencies and posts who have imminent and compelling protection concerns, who do not qualify for a P2 referral. Examples include civil society leaders, what a weird thing to say, women leaders, USG exchange alumni, senior Afghan government officials, and members of the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces. Interesting. P2 referrals are intended for certain defined categories of Afghans who are affiliated with the U.S. through employment, but who do not qualify for a special immigrant visa. All U.S. government P1 and P2 referrals must be submitted through the referring agency's U.S. RAP Afghan Referrals Workgroup representative, according to the process outlined in paragraphs 6 and 8 below. Stephen Ortiz, thank you. Let's not forget that Biden gave the Taliban a list of names of the interpreters who assisted the U.S. military for some reason. Did that I don't remember if that happened or not, man. I wouldn't doubt it. So it sounds crazy. So it sounds like something that would happen. They continue, civil society leaders include leaders of non-governmental organizations, community groups, labor unions, indigenous peoples movements, faith-based organizations, professional associations, foundations, think tanks, charitable organizations, and other not-for-profit organizations. Even outside of their country of origin, civil society leaders are likely to continue advocating for their respective causes and often remain deeply connected to high-ranking officials in foreign governments around the world. By August 31st, 21, the Biden-Harris administration was still figuring out its official talking points in response to questions about the screening and vetting that was taking place to ensure that dangerous individuals would not slip through. Sent from Sean Savitt on Tuesday, August 31st, to DNI Media, so it's a bunch of names here. Hi all, we're looking to clear the following additional Q&A on our screening and vetting process through the interagency today. Could DHS, DNI, State run this through your teams and get back to us by COB? Wynn and Kelsey, could you run by the FBI? Thank you. And then it's a big fucking redacted blobbert. Later that day, NBC News contacted the DOJ for answers regarding possible terror connections, but the DOJ still didn't have answers. This is from Wynn Hornbuckle, forwarding a question to David A. Newman and Matt Blue. FISA just flagged this for NSC and FBI. Sent from my iPhone. Begin forwarded message from Jonathan Dienst to Wynn Hornbuckle. I almost said Hucklebuckle. Hi, Wynn. Are you able to offer any guidance on record or on background? As part of ongoing screening process, we're hearing severally evacuees in D.C. and numerous others in Doha have been pulled aside and are being held for additional screening due to possible terror connections. This is because they've been flagged with derogatory information related to terrorism from either U.S. databases or Afghan criminal databases and records or other intelligence resources. This apparently is separate from a handful of refugees pulled aside because they had previously been deported from the U.S. for criminal acts and now tried to re-enter. Man, this program sounds like it was going so fucking well. Also hearing several refugees pulled aside in Europe as well. Any clarity you can offer would be appreciated. How many evacuees in DC and Doha and or Europe have been pulled aside for possible terror connections? 2, do any have confirmed terror ties? I feel like if you bring in a large group of people and a bunch have to be pulled aside for possible terror connections, maybe just send the whole group back, right? Like maybe don't let them in. A Justice Department spokesman declined to comment, and they have some screenshots here that says, U.S. plans to send at least 2 Afghan evacuees to Kosovo for further review. At least 2 Afghans who were evacuated to the U.S. will be sent to Kosovo for more review, but that does not mean they necessarily pose a terror threat. The 30,000 evacuees from Afghanistan to the U.S., about 10,000 needed additional screening as of Friday, said the sources. And of those, about 100 were flagged for possible ties to the Taliban or terror groups. 2 of those 100 raised enough concern for additional review. According to the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General, even for the Afghans who were supposed to wait in a third country while their acceptance into a refugee U.S. resettlement program was being reviewed, many were just flown into the U.S. without being fully vetted. Man, some of the refugees have reportedly been charged with heinous crimes such as rape. Afghan evacuee charged with rape in Montana? Governor says demanding resettlement halt. The Biden administration has evacuated tens of thousands of Afghans, and this was October 21st, 2021. The Biden-Harris administration's stonewalling and lack of transparency into its disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan has even led to a threat of contempt for its refusal to comply with a congressional subpoena. Chairman McCall threatens to hold Blinken in contempt if state continues withholding key Afghanistan withdrawal documents. Tonight, House of Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCall sent a letter to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, threatening to hold him in contempt of Congress if the department continues to withhold interview documents relied on to draft their after-action review of the Biden administration's deadly and chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. That's cool and all, but did anything come of that? Did anything actually happen with this threat? I don't remember 2021. As of July 2024, the Department of State Inspector General could not confirm the number of individuals evacuated from Afghanistan, regardless of destination, with support of the U.S. government. Finding A is that the department did not provide reliable data on the number of individuals evacuated from Afghanistan during the NEO. Actually fucking insane. Incredibly, the Biden-Harris administration gave the Taliban operational control over access to the Kabul airport. It provided Taliban officials with lists of U.S. citizens. Hey, somebody in chat mentioned that. Lists of U.S. citizens and Afghan human assets and the names of the Americans and Afghan allies it intended to evacuate, even as it relied on the Taliban for security outside the airport. The Biden administration's increasingly muddy denials on giving the Taliban lists. U.S. officials provided Taliban with names of Americans and Afghan allies to evacuate. The White House contends that limited information sharing with the Taliban is saving lives. Critics argue it's putting Afghan allies in harm's way, which, yeah, it is. What the fuck? If you didn't give the list to the Taliban, the Afghan people wouldn't have needed to been evacuated in the first place. What do you mean? The footage of people around the C-17 in Kabul is still insane to you? Politico quoted one U.S. official as saying, basically, they just put all those Afghans on a kill list. It's just appalling and shocking and makes you feel unclean. 13 American service members were killed and 18 wounded as a result of the Biden-Harris administration's disregard and incompetence. And then America First Legal ends here by saying, the Biden-Harris administration claims to have evacuated more than 123,000 people from Afghanistan. Only 6,000 are American citizens. Through its litigation, we will continue fighting to expose the Biden-Harris administration's duplicity and disregard for our national security. And that is exactly what it is. An excellent argument for not admitting them as refugees, you know, in addition to them being military-age men. Yeah, when you have their wives, their children, their fellow countrymen saying, these aren't refugees, these are cowards fleeing what they should be doing in their own country, it boggles the mind that nobody listens to that. And then we have, what's here? Pete Hegseth announces that Trump will deploy 500 more National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. after today's shooting.
We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic.
It has.
The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down.
And that fuckwit Dean Blundel, who I think we read a tweet from earlier. Somebody said he used to be like a radio guy until he harassed too many women. Dean Blundel, in response to Pete Hegseth saying, we're going to send more troops there because clearly we have not done enough about the crime issue if they're shooting our National Guardsmen in broad daylight. Dean Blundel said, "There it is. No motive, no details, just putting more innocent National Guard members in the line of fire. Pete Hegseth and Trump need to be removed." And of course, he's also locked comments. Also, again, this is the capital of the United States, the country that the National Guardmen serve. They should be safe in their own nation. The fact that they are able to be shot in broad daylight in the capital of their nation is an indictment not of Trump and the administration, but of how far out of control crime has gotten in that area, how far out of control our immigration policies have been. A leaf pretending to not understand anything to make discourse impossible. What a surprise! Imagine. And then Eric Doherty said here, unfortunately, West Virginia National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom has passed away at 20 years old due to gunshot injuries from the Afghan shooter. And Trump made a statement on it.
Seconds before I went on, right now, I heard that Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now. Her parents are with her. It's just happened. She was savagely attacked. She's dead. She's not with us. Incredible person. Outstanding in every single way, in every department. That's horrible.
It's incredibly... It should make everyone distraught that this happened. It should make you distraught and not at the current administration, unless you want to say that they're not doing enough fast enough, which has been my opinion. But the feelings of being distraught should be at how out of control our immigration policies have been allowed to get for decades through multiple Democratic and Republican governments. And the vile rhetoric from people who want to see more death and chaos happening. It's deliberate. And then there's another thing. A reporter was being a retard.
Why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let him in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because
Imagine asking such a fucking question right after this happened. I do not blame him for being like, are you fucking stupid? Like, come on, dude.
They came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here, and you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person.
Yep.
And there's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in, and they were unvetted, they were unchecked, there were many of them, and they came in on big planes, and it was disgraceful. And if you look, you'll see there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in, and they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation was a mess. It should have never taken place. If we're going to go out, and we would have gone out because I had everybody ready to go. We were going to go out with strength and dignity and precision. And we would have left from Bagram, and we would have kept Bagram, by the way, because of its very close relationship to China and where they make their missiles. But when you let the people come in by the thousands and thousands and thousands, they made a terrible mistake. But they were incompetent, yeah.
I could not imagine trying to ask something so jarringly retarded while he's giving a press briefing on the 2 National Guardsmen just shot. Like, actually crazy. The disingenuous nature of the reporters and people saying he was approved under Trump's admin are completely glossing over the way our laws work and ignoring the fact that Trump is not, in fact, a dictator who can just send these illegal aliens home. I very much wish that he could take a bit more of a hard stance to get people out a lot faster, but yeah, he's not a dictator, and he can't. How the hell did we just pull 117,000 Afghans into the US with no vetting at all? That's a great fucking question. And then, there was apparently people searching for the guy's name, the Rahmanullah Lakanwal or whatever. There were people searching for his name before the shooting. And this guy got like video evidence of it, you know, being searched for before the shooting, because it got deleted afterwards. I don't know, maybe a little tinfoil, but I thought it was interesting. Thought it was interesting to like throw in there that hey, they deleted the evidence of his name being searched for right before the shooting a bunch of times. That's kind of weird. That's kind of strange. Let me post this one in chat. I don't know if KB has the America First chain, because I wanted to put that one in chat, but then I forgot. I forgot to put that one in chat, but this is the search history thing. And then they have this breaking Google search results for Rahmanullah Lakanwal, the DC National Guard shooter, spiked in the DC area on November 20th, 6 days before the attack, and again multiple times on the morning of the attack. What a very strangely specific thing to search for right before he carries out a terror attack against National Guard members. Interesting. This was the white pill post I referenced earlier. I don't know exactly which Trump post this is, if this is the Thanksgiving one, because I want to read the Thanksgiving one in full. The very happy Thanksgiving. Seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, which is true. He is very severely retarded. And now all the lefties are scurrying around like cockroaches being like, oh, the president called someone a slur. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. If you think retard is a slur, you are the retard. So I don't know if this is that one, but this guy, Christian Hyens, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who this is either. I've seen a couple of his tweets before. He's got the happy awoo icon. He says, it has become extremely popular to blackpill in recent months, partly because many of us rightfully believe that Republicans in DC just do not understand what time it is, and partly because the nature of online discourse in general fuels a sort of neuroticism that generates a self-defeating mindset. But some perspective here is necessary. Because I want you to imagine anyone, let alone the president of the US, declaring in 2012 that he intends to end all migration from the third world, and that only reverse migration can fully cure the situation. The Overton window has shifted. This does not guarantee victory, but it enables a battle to be fought in the first place. And there hasn't been a real battle over immigration policy that hasn't been over how many more infinite migrants should we bring over since the earliest 20th century. We're no longer debating how liberal our immigration policy should be. We're now, at long last, debating who belongs in this country and who doesn't. For those who have been involved in politics for more than 10 years, we almost lack the words to describe how monumental a shift that is. And like I said, I have the same exact opinion as this guy does, but he put it in a more eloquent way than I think I am capable of doing. So it's a really nice, happy hope light nugget that we can look upon. That things are, even if they are incredibly slow, they are moving in a way that hopefully should be good. And this Trump post says, even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policy has eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover. Terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen. And remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country. End all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. This should have been done so fucking long ago. If you come to this country, you should not be, as an immigrant, receiving federal benefits. You should not be receiving any kind of taxpayer dollar handouts. If you are immigrating to another country, the hope is that you are there to enrich yourself and the country which you are moving to, not to bleed it dry. It is wild that this has been allowed to go on for so long, and I'm sure there are many, many people who will cry fascist Nazi fucking nonsense at this happening. Finally. But if we are to recover any amount of prosperity for Americans, for people who have immigrated here in the past, who wanted to become part of the American fabric, for people who have escaped communist nations, trying to actually have a life instead of living under a warlord, this needs to happen. This is what needs to be done. These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive populations, including those admitted through an unauthorized and illegal auto pen approval process. Only reverse migration can fully cure this situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those that hate steal, murder, and destroy everything that America stands for, you won't be here for long. And again, this fucking AWU poster is completely correct. If you had told me in 2012 a politician, much less a sitting president, would have talked about reverse migration, I would not have believed you. So this is wild to hear, and I hope that it's not just bloviating to placate people. I hope this actually happens. You're so nothing ever happens, you'll wait. I have felt, very black-pilled on some of these things, and I agree with him. It's very easy to fall into that. And I'm glad that I can stay mostly white-pilled and encourage other people to feel the same way. Because as someone who is terminally online for what I do for work, it does fuel a neuroticism that makes you feel like there's a hopeless loop, but it's not hopeless. This is what you voted for, but actions speak louder. You hope he really follows through. I hope so as well. Because the fucking smear campaigns are going to rocket far harder than they were before. Somewhat Brian Allen, I don't know. He has America First in his bio, but Trump just detonated online and used a derogatory disability slur to describe Minnesota Governor Tim Walz in a public Thanksgiving message, no less. This isn't tough talk. It's the President of the United States calling Minnesota Governor Tim Walz seriously retarded in an official holiday message, a direct use of demeaning language to attack a sitting governor. Yeah, well, I don't really care when the left constantly uses terms like white nationalist or white supremacist or fascist or Nazi to refer to people that they want to see murdered in the streets. I don't really give a fuck if Donald Trump looks at goofy-ass Tim Walz and says, "You're seriously retarded." Because that's just the fucking truth in this case. And no one is going to kill him for being seriously retarded. But the full post of what Trump said, which is also a really nice thing to hear. Double white pills towards the end here. A very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all of our great American citizens and patriots who have been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world, for being politically correct and just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. The official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, according to the census, most of which are on welfare from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, or drug cartels. They and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape, or form. They put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating them alive to do so. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both, while the worst congressmen and women in our country, Ilhan Omar, always wrapped in her swaddling hijab, and who probably came into the USA illegally, and that you are not allowed to marry your brother. He fucking finally said it! Now do something about it! Do something about it! Why are we allowing someone who came here illegally to still be a sitting congressperson? Come the fuck on. Come the fuck on. But also, I really hope Trump gets the information from what's going on in Maine as well. Because it's great that he's mentioning the Somalian gang shit in Minnesota, but the fact that tax dollars from Minnesota and tax dollars from Maine are going over to Somalia to fund two sides of a Somalian civil fucking war, with someone even trying to fund a campaign for Jubaland in Somalia, is wild and should be talked about on a national stage. Why is that happening? Oh, man. In the USA illegally, and that you're not allowed to marry your brother, does nothing but hatefully complain about our country, its constitution, and how badly she is treated, when her place of origin is a decadent, backward, and crime-ridden nation, which is essentially not even a country, for lack of government, military, police, schools, etc. This was the part that I read earlier, that even as we progress technologically from that white pill post earlier, so we read this half of it where he talks about reverse migration, but the first half was a fucking banger, brother. First half was a banger. Someone here responded with, the U.S. Embassy in India issued more than 1 million non-immigrant visas each year in 2023 and 2024. We imported 700,000 Indians on B1, B2 visas and 125,000 Indians on F1 visas in 2023 alone. End migration from India effective immediately. Yeah? He said that he's going to be halting migration from the third world. India 100% needs to be included in that list. 100%. And in addition to that, President Trump and Kristi Noem are officially terminating the temporary protected status of Haitians. Over 350,000 Haitians must leave the country by February 3rd or face deportation and a lifetime ban. This is great news for Americans in places like Springfield, Ohio. They can finally have their towns back. We're finally doing what the Democratic Republic did ages ago. The Dominican Republic, sorry, it's past 8 chat. The Dominican Republic did years ago. The Dominican Republic said, if you are Haitian and you're living in the Dominican Republic, you must prove ancestry going back multiple generations or you're getting kicked the fuck out. By illegal Haitians, you will not be missed. The cats and the dogs will be safe now. Munya. The CIA Director John Ratcliffe confirmed that Rahmanullah Lakanwal, the Afghan national accused of shooting 2 National Guardsmen near the White House, once worked with the CIA in Afghanistan and later entered the U.S. through the Biden evacuation program. His asylum was approved earlier this year. Ratcliffe stated that Lakanwal should never have been brought into the country and called the situation a direct result of what he described as the administration's failures in the Afghanistan withdrawal, which is 100% true. And then another part talking about it, the DC Guardsman shooting isn't adding up. Shooter Rahmanullah Lakanwal, CIA-backed Kandahar Strike Force vet, per leaked ID, and Ratcliffe in a Fox News interview confirmed Lakanwal's ties to the CIA as a part of a partner force in Kandahar. Based on declassified and intel briefings, ambushed 2 unarmed guardsmen at 2:15 p.m. Eastern yesterday. This was posted on the 27th. Yelling Allahu Akbar, critical but alive, but Google Trends, his name spiked in DC at 2:24 a.m., 84 interest, 3:28 a.m., 100, 8 a.m., 22, hours before shots were fired. For knowledge, we need to subpoena the IPs who were searching for him. I'm not going to read the article because it doesn't fucking matter, but CBS said the growing popularity of Korean fried chicken reflects a greater familiarity with Korean culture, but its origins can be traced back to African-American soldiers fighting in the Korean War. And they got like orbital striked from the community notes. Korean-style fried chicken goes back further than the Korean War. A 15th century Korean cookbook describes a dish called poggi, seasoned chicken fried in oil and sauce eaten by aristocrats. Korean fried chicken, unlike in the US, is fried at least twice. Can you imagine trying to lay claim over Korean fried chicken? What the actual fuck? Also, yeah, generational ratio, 4.1 million views and only 1.1k likes. Absolutely wild. We was Koreans and shit. Well, they already fucking tried to make Yasuke a devoted samurai, so I wonder what kind of aspect of Korean culture, besides the fried chicken, will also get co-opted. The greatest contribution to Korea from black people is fried chicken. If I said this, I'd be called racist.